Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had so many questions. How do we record an episode? Where do we find background music? How do we get our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places that people like to listen? And where do we find advertisers? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing, and monetizing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and 100% ridiculously easy to use. Anchor makes it simple to get up and running. You can upload and schedule your podcasts ahead of time. It publishes to all the major podcast platforms. You can easily check your stats. I could go on, but instead, why don't you go and get started? Go to anchor.fm/start to join the e-commerce minute and a diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
It's the e-commerce minute, your daily dose of e-commerce, tech, and retail news with your hosts Bart Mraz and John Suter. The e-commerce minute is a production of Sumo Heavy, a digital commerce consulting firm in Brooklyn, New York, and Philadelphia. Find us on the web at sumoheavy.com. Retail transformation is very much underway as traditional retailers close stores and file for bankruptcy at rates not seen since the Great Recession. In fact, over 6,700 stores have shuttered in 2017 alone. Big retail can no longer dominate in today's digital environment without reevaluating their strategy. How can retailers reinvent themselves to be successful in today's market? What do the new rules of retail mean for 2018? Download Sumo Heavy's newest white paper to learn the best practices and principles. The free white paper can be downloaded at newrulesofretail.info. That's newrulesofretail.info. It's e-commerce minute for February 1st, 2018.
In today's episode, cloud cyberattacks could cost retail $3.4 billion.
Billion with a B. A major cyber attack on U.S. cloud services could cost retail and wholesale industries up to $3.4 billion in losses. That's the cheery news coming from a report from Lloyd's and AIR Worldwide published on Retail Dive last week. The report stated that if an attack were to take down one of the country's top 3 cloud service providers for a period of 3 to 6 days, the outage would cause losses of between $1.4 billion and $3.5 billion for the retail and wholesale trade sector. It also stated that smaller businesses would suffer a larger total economic loss than the Fortune 1000, strictly because companies too small to achieve that ranking are the ones more likely to use cloud providers to avoid buying and building their own in-house IT infrastructure. The manufacturing sector could also face a potential loss of up to $8.9 billion, meaning that retailers adopting cloud services may want to go the extra steps to determine what their cyber risk exposure is. Sleep tight, IT guys.
Yeah, welcome to cloud, baby.
So this is something that's near and dear to us because we have clients that use cloud services, and it's pretty frightening.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening, but it's also where everything's going to go anyway. So, I mean, all these companies have to secure their stuff.
It just makes fiscal sense, but at the same time, the risk. Well, it's on one hand on the other. It's like if you don't have the money to build an IT infrastructure, you use the cloud. Either way, there's a risk. So, what's the better risk?
I mean, if you look at it from a perspective of, internal, people still do on-premise stuff all the time because they have to. There's definitely places that they need to do it on, but.
And why would they do? Why would they stay in premise? Is it some other issue that isn't related to cost?
Yeah, I mean, on financial institutions, most of them still do on premise. They kind of have to.
They have to because they can't put financial information in the cloud.
And then also, it really depends. I mean, there's argument between cloud and your own servers and where that pricing breaks.
Right.
So Amazon runs on minutes, but if you do a lot of it, eventually having your own server just works better. So this is always going to be an issue. It doesn't really matter. It's like security. You kind of have to do it on both sides. And this, the more e-commerce being prevalent and bigger, it's going to get attacked.
Sure. I mean, obviously, this is this report's full of a lot of gloom and doom. Could you imagine cloud service providers being down for 3 to 6 days?
Yeah, no.
I mean, that would be even worse. Just the fact that people would lose money, I think the whole economy would probably suffer a pretty big blow, don't you think?
A little bit, but they would have to take down the whole infrastructure, which is a little harder to do.
Okay. Well, that's nice cheery news for
really,
today.
Imagine taking Amazon down fully.
Right, take Amazon down for 3 days.
Going down. That's not just one place.
Right. Someone plug the internet back in, please.
Pretty much. Actually, that's probably what would happen.
Oh, God. All right. Anything else to add to this one?
Well, it's not cheerful. Good job there, John.
Be safe. Be safe, everyone. And if it breaks, just unplug and plug it back in. See if that works. All right. That's your e-commerce minute for today. We'll see you on the internet tomorrow. That's it for today's show. If you like the show, do us a favor and subscribe or leave us a review on iTunes. And don't forget, you can now listen to the e-commerce minute on your Amazon device. Just add e-commerce minute to your flash briefing. And finally, if you have a comment or suggestion or just want to say hi, find us on social media at Sumo Heavy.